The Johannesburg Stock Exchange, for example, celebrated the day by ringing the bell on gender equality. The country has produced its fair share of strong, aggressive female leaders who've led by example, challenging and breaking existing stereotypes. Angelo Coppola is at our starting point tonight in Johannesburg.
Advocate Thuli Madonsela is one such person, going round for round and fighting the good fight. But gender issues remain a concern.
I think in our country we have reached a bit of a hiatus. There was a time, I think during President Nelson Mandela and during President Nelson Mbeki, where it was at the forefront of creating a better South Africa. And it was seen as a human rights issue, but it was also seen as part of our developmental strategy, that we empower women to empower ourselves. I think the current government needs to beef up its focus on gender equality.
While some might question the black empowerment credentials of some listed companies and generally black ownership of the JSE, this is one institution that has put its money where its mouth is in terms of gender equality.
We have a woman chairperson. We have at least out of a board of 12 people, half of the board is women. On the executive management team, we have 7 women and 3 men. We have, and 61% of our full employee body are women.
While gender equality is not a listings requirement on the JSE, there is some progress in that direction. The JSE has asked potential listed companies to have a gender policy in place.
From 2017, companies need to report on how they are doing. So this does not mean if they don't meet their own policy that they've set, that there's a sanction from the JSE. But this regulation really just supports the employment equity requirements.
The legal profession, on the other hand, has made some progress, but it's not enough.
Legal profession, my understanding is that today is better than yesterday. You do know that until 1923, women were not even allowed to be lawyers, and it was said that it's not really a profession that they are created for. And today we have about, I think, 25% of the legal profession are women.
It appears, though, that there's a legal impediment to putting gender equality back near the top of the priority list.
We are far from being where we should be, and part of it is that there are laws that have not yet been implemented, one of them being the Equality Act. Chapter 5 of it needs to be implemented.
The JSE is seen as a pinnacle or a symbol of what can be achieved when it comes to gender equality. It's got a great composition in terms of its board and its executive directorship level. It now has to drill down into the companies that are listed on the JSE. I'm Angelo Coppola for CCTV in Sandton, Johannesburg.
Let's take stock of where we are right now and what we need to do in order to vaporize the glass ceiling. Arantxa Gonzalez is Executive Director of the International Trade Center. It's a joint agency of the UN Conference on Trade and Development and the WTO. She's live in Geneva right now. Thank you very much for your time this evening. Walk us through the origin of the She Trades campaign and what it has achieved so far.
Well, first of all, our big goal is to make sure we put more women into the economy. Why? Because if we don't, then we're losing a huge opportunity. We're losing an opportunity the size of the Chinese or the Indian economies, about 1 billion women that could be part of our economies that are not. Often these women are invisible to markets. They face legal restrictions. They face problems of norms and traditions that don't necessarily see them as part of their economy. But the most important thing, they are invisible. They are not known. So what we wanted to do is create an app to give them an ability to be more visible to the market, to make sure that buyers know where to find them, to make sure they connect with other companies that can be their mentors, that can be their sisters and brothers in this struggle to make a greater part of our economies.
Indeed. I read last year's report on locking markets for women, and there was this line that really stood out for me. The body of evidence on women's participation in the global economy is limited, end of quote. What exactly is it that we do not know, and how should we get that data?
Well, I think we know, we have a sense that we know a lot, but in reality we know little in detail. So one very important thing is that we gather better data so that we can tackle with a surgical knife all these different obstacles to women's participation in the economy. A lot that we don't know is because many women are active in the informal sector, and by the very nature, informal sector are more difficult to understand. We don't have data, we don't have knowledge. But of the data and the knowledge that we have, we know that 90% of the countries in this world exercise at least one or more legal restrictions to the participation of women in the economy compared to men. So there we have already a big set of actions that we can undertake to increase the participation of women in the economy. And why is it that we want to put them as part of their economy? Because economies that are more diverse, just like companies that are more diverse, they are more competitive, they are more productive, they create more jobs and they pay better jobs. That's our objective. So let's first get rid of all these legal restrictions that impede the full participation of women in the economy. But then let's also make sure that we work to change social norms, traditions, habits, culture. That's the soft part. This is why we wanted to launch this app through a technology challenge. And this is where it was a Kenyan company, a young Kenyan entrepreneur that won this challenge. We wanted to demonstrate that young entrepreneurs can also be part of the most innovative segments of our economies, the IT sector, for example.
Indeed.
So use visibility of these women, use you, the media, to bring them into the mainstream.
Right. One last question for you, Ms. Gonzalez. Beyond making changes, like having firms, for example, take on the cost of providing childcare for their employees where governments do not, what other proven interventions can we put forward to make it a lot easier for mothers to remain in the workforce and still be as competitive as they were before, if not more competitive, especially in developing economies?
Well, what we need is hard infrastructure. We need the places where women can obviously leave their children in good hands while they are working, so that these children can be raised, they can be educated. But we also need the softer infrastructure. We need work-life balance policies. We need to apply these work-life balance policies in an intelligent way. We need intelligent parental leave, not just for the mother, but also for the father. So this is the hard and the soft infrastructure that is necessary to make sure women can thrive in the companies in which they work. And again, let's not forget, the companies that embed women that are more diverse are more productive. They are more competitive. They pay better salaries. That's our goal, more solid economies by tackling the difficulties that prevent today the full participation of women in our economies.
Indeed. We'll leave it there for the time being. Thank you very much for your time this evening. Arantxa Gonzalez, of course, from the International Trade Center.